Hey guys, tonight we dive headfirst into the roaring waves of the 18th century, where the ocean churns black with gunpowder smoke and sails blot out the sun. You expect a jug of sloshing rum, a few raucous sea shanties, and a one-eyed pirate slurring curses. But instead, as you step aboard this weather-worn vessel, something peculiar hits your nose: steam, floral sweet, rising from a cracked porcelain mug. Yep, you're on a pirate ship, and these fearsome rogues aren't guzzling rum, they're sipping tea. You probably won't survive this if you expect everything you know about pirates to stay intact. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, post your location and local time in the comments. I want to know where and when you're sneaking off into this strange bedtime voyage. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You duck your head below the deck and the scent gets stronger. Notes of bergamot, a touch of lemon rind, maybe even cloves. Pirates bustle past you, barefoot and sunburned but oddly chipper. One mutters something about the morning steep being ready. Not the grog, not the rum. Tea. It's early morning, and instead of a rum-splashed breakfast, these brigands are gulping down a hot cup of something brewed in dented kettles. That alone should make you pause. Pirates, supposedly fueled by fermented chaos, are choosing a beverage your aunt might serve with scones. Here's the twist: it wasn't just preference, it was policy, at least unofficially. See, in the early 1700s, pirates were often ex-naval sailors or merchant seamen. They knew what a brutal hangover at sea could do, especially during a storm or battle. So when you're swabbing the deck and the world's rocking more than usual, a jitter of caffeine feels a lot better than a bellyful of rot gut rum. The grog ration, a mix of rum and water, sometimes citrus, occasionally sugar, was standard for naval men. But it was also dangerous. Water stored aboard ships went bad fast, and rum helped mask the taste and kill bacteria, sure. But drinking it constantly? Not the best idea when you're trying to keep from falling off the rigging. Pirates didn't follow rules, but they weren't stupid. And then there's the fact that tea, yes, the dainty little leaf, was exploding across Europe and the colonies. Thanks to the British East India Company's aggressive trade, tea had become a status symbol. It wasn't long before crates of the stuff started showing up on captured merchant ships. And if you're a pirate, plundering isn't just about gold, it's about value, demand, and let's be real, resale potential. So they stole it, and then they started drinking it. One fascinating tidbit: some pirate crews actually held democratic votes on shipboard supplies. And occasionally, they voted for tea over alcohol when rationing was tight. Can you imagine Black Bart Roberts pausing before a boarding and saying, "Gentlemen, one lump or two"? Historians still argue whether tea truly overtook rum in all pirate circles, or whether we're romanticizing a quirky exception. But what's undeniable is that enough of them prefer it for journals, ship logs, and port records to start raising eyebrows back in England. As the morning sun slices through the mist and the sails snap above you, the crew settles into their routines. Some mend ropes, others scrape barnacles, and a few sit cross-legged, sipping from mismatched mugs as if they're a seaside cafe. There's even a man with a chipped china set, possibly stolen, definitely cherished, pouring with theatrical flair. It's easy to joke about it, but let's not forget, these were hardened outlaws. Their hands bore scars from cutlasses, their legs bristled with splinters, and they still faced death daily. And yet, they paused for tea. Not because it made them soft, but because it made them sharper. Tea, especially green and black varieties, contains L-theanine, a compound that smooths out the edginess of caffeine. That means alertness without the shakes, energy without the crash. Exactly what you want when boarding a vessel armed with muskets and bad intentions. And speaking of boarding, some pirates even brewed tea before attacks, believing it steadied the nerves and settled the stomach. Imagine that. In the moments before cannonballs fly and swords flash, someone's whispering, "Steep it 3 minutes or it goes bitter." There's even a whiff of fringe lore floating around about pirates who made ritual tea brews with herbs for luck at sea. Was it superstition? Maybe. But considering they also avoided whistling on deck for fear it would whistle up a storm, it fits right in. The sun climbs higher, and you feel the shift in mood. The tea has done its job. These men are alert, energized, and oddly chatty. Someone plays a slow tune on a tin whistle, while another passes around dry biscuits dunked in lukewarm along. It's quiet for a moment, just the creak of wood and the lap of waves. Then a loud belch breaks the silence. Better than grog, the belcher declares, and no one disagrees. Because while rum might have been a comfort, tea was control. It meant precision over recklessness, awareness over haze. On the high seas, that could mean life or death. So next time you imagine a pirate with a bottle, maybe picture one with a kettle. You shuffle your way through the gently rolling corridor of the lower deck, head still buzzing from the surprise of that morning brew. The light slants through the tiny portholes and slivers, glinting off pewter cups and the occasional tea-stained, toothy grin. The galley is alive with sound. Boiling water, clanking tinware, a cook muttering about steep times. You're not imagining things. Tea isn't just a treat on this pirate ship. It's ritual. The morning dram, once a messy gut punch of watered-down rum, has been replaced by a far calmer, more civilized tradition. A bucket-sized kettle swings gently from a hook above the coals, and every few minutes a crew member staggers over to refill his mug. You follow the scent. It's dark, earthy, maybe gunpowder green? Hard to tell with a pinch of salt air in your nostrils. Still, you can't deny the pull. Even your sea-blasted boots seem to march you there on instinct. A lean, wiry man, shirt open, hat askew, slides you a chipped mug. "Careful," he says. "Burn me tongue this morning. Captain likes it boiling." And with that, he disappears into the pantry. Tea time on a pirate ship? Not what you were expecting. But you're starting to understand. The crew isn't hungover. They're efficient, even cheerful. One man is whistling. Another is sketching a tattoo design in charcoal while sipping with pinky outstretched, mockingly aristocratic. Here's a hard truth. Pirates couldn't afford to be sluggish. They had no Royal Navy infrastructure, no backup plans. When danger came, it came fast. And if you were slurring your orders because the morning grog hit too hard, you'd be dead before you could yell brace. Pirates like Captain Howell Davis and William Fly were strict about morning discipline. While there's no surviving recipe book for pirate nutrition, surviving logs mention alternative morning rations aboard certain vessels, especially in the Caribbean. Boiled grains, salt fish, and yes, black leaf infusion, served with lemon or ginger if available. Lemon, huh? That sounds oddly intentional, functional, almost healthy. You begin to realize that tea didn't just replace rum because of taste. It replaced it because of need. While rum offered escape, tea offered readiness. And in the unpredictable world of piracy, readiness was everything. Historians still argue whether this shift was due to a few visionary captains or just a practical evolution over time. Some claim tea only took hold among crews raiding East Indiamen, where the supply was literally falling into their laps. Others say it was part of a broader civilizing trend as pirates tried to distance themselves from a caricatured, drunken image. Though, let's be honest, these guys still carve skulls into their mugs. It wasn't just the physical benefits, either. Morning tea brought structure, a moment of calm before chaos. Think of it like their version of a team huddle before kickoff, except with loose-leaf Ceylon and maybe a biscuit if you hadn't eaten it during the night watch. Quirky detail incoming. On one Jamaican-based vessel, recovered documents hinted at a crew member appointed as Leaf Master, literally the guy in charge of rationing, steeping, and safeguarding the stash. Imagine being the caffeine quartermaster on a ship full of hardened thieves. Bet that job came with danger pay, and yet there was pride in it. Having a decent blend aboard showed that your ship was thriving, that your plunder wasn't just shiny, but also steepable. In the corner of the galley, you spot a makeshift shrine of sorts. It's just a wooden crate with a torn map tacked above it, and on top, lined like little treasures, are neatly labeled tins, Darjeeling, bohea, even some dried hibiscus leaves. The Leaf Master, an older man with a limp and a wicked wink, tells you they salvaged those during a chase off the Malabar coast. Couldn't catch the schooner, he says, but she dumped her cargo to speed up. Waterlogged the spices, but the tea? Still dry. Praised the crates. Another reason tea edged out rum? It traveled better. Sure, rum lasted forever, but it was heavy and sometimes too valuable to drink. Tea, on the other hand, was light, easy to store, and, let's face it, easier to enjoy when you're not trying to pickle yourself. And so, your second morning aboard passes, not in a haze of hangovers and hoarse shouting, but in a strange, slightly refined rhythm. After all, once a ship switches to tea for morning rations, it sets a tone. You're not waking up slumped against a barrel anymore. You're upright, warm from the inside out, and, dare you say it, slightly less miserable. Which on a pirate ship, that's saying something. By mid-morning, sails are being mended with more precision, and the helmsman doesn't sway as he charts their path. Even the parrots seem calmer. Okay, maybe that's in your head, but you're definitely sensing a shift. Tea, it turns out, doesn't just change your mood. It changes the entire vibe of a floating criminal democracy. You linger at the edge of the galley a bit longer, listening to stories passed over mugs. One man talks about brewing with seawater for flavor. Another insists a cinnamon stick saved him from scurvy. None of it is medically verified, of course. But you realize that these pirates aren't just drinking tea. They're living it, making it part of their morning ritual, their humor, their identity. And as the sun rises higher, you finally understand what might be the quietest secret in pirate lore. That in a world ruled by gunpowder, storm clouds, and short tempers, sometimes it wasn't the sword or the pistol that kept you sharp. It was the tea. By the time your sea legs stop wobbling and the ship begins to feel more like a home and less like a constantly moving death platform, the crew has grown used to your wide-eyed wonder. You're not the first landlubber to look baffled at the sight of pirates cradling mugs instead of flasks. But now it's time you follow the leaves upstream. Trace how this humble drink made its way into the sun-scorched hands of men with names like Vane, Rackham, and Nbani. You're perched on a barrel near the helm when the captain sidles up beside you, mug in hand. Ever wonder how this got here? He says, tilting the tin cup toward the horizon like it's a compass. This ain't just leaf juice. It's history, it's empire, and it's loot. He's not wrong. To understand why pirates preferred tea over rum, you got to look beyond the ship and toward the globe. Specifically eastward, toward the plantations of Fujian and Yunnan, the cliff-top terraces of Darjeeling, the port of Canton where traders bartered silk, porcelain, and a whole lot of tea. By the early 1700s, tea had become a cargo of obsession. Britain couldn't get enough of it. Nobles wanted it for their drawing rooms. Merchants saw gold in its steam. The British East India Company, the semi-military, totally greedy titan of global trade, was shipping it home by the ton. Their ships, called East Indiamen, were floating fortresses brimming with spices, silks, opium, and, you guessed it, tea bricks packed tighter than a miser's purse, which made them irresistible targets. Picture it. A slow, lumbering East Indiaman cutting through the Indian Ocean sails fat with monsoon winds, holds groaning with cargo. Then, from the haze, a lean pirate sloop slices forward, fast and low like a shark. Guns fire, flags rise, and within an hour, the British flagship is stripped of its treasures, its charts, its gold, and its crates of tea. Many of those crates ended up in hidden coves throughout the Caribbean and West Africa. The more refined blends, sold on the black market, sometimes straight back to British buyers who didn't ask too many questions. The broken leaf scrap, kept for the crew. After all, why sell the good stuff if the leftover dust still gets you a warm cup and a clear head? Historians still argue whether these raids were strategic or simply opportunistic. Some believe pirates targeted tea deliberately, understanding its rising value in Europe. Others claim it was just part of plundering anything that wasn't nailed down, or even if it was. But there's evidence suggesting pirates knew exactly what they were doing. Captains like Edward England and Olivier Levasseur were notorious for unloading huge quantities of East India cargo through shadowy trade networks. Tea, with its compact size and lightweight nature, became a smuggler's dream. Rum barrels leaked, tea bricks stacked. And here's your quirky tidbit. Some pirate crews, short on paper, actually used tea wrappers, hand-printed silk and parchment from Chinese merchants, as makeshift journals or even currency tokens aboard ship. One fragment recovered off Madagascar still had a dried leaf inside, folded like a letter. Romantic? Definitely. Functional? Well, it smelled better than most coins. You're below deck now, standing in the cargo hold, where crates are stacked 6 high and lashed to the timbers. The air here is dry and dusty, tinged with a rich, fermented aroma. Some crates are marked in Cantonese characters. Others bear the burnt-in crest of the East India Company, a lion and unicorn flanking a coat of arms, now scratched and scorched by sabers. A weathered pirate you recognize as Bones because of, well, the necklace of actual bones around his neck. Cracks one open with a crowbar and shows you a dense, compressed brick of dark leaf. This one's bohea, he grunts. Real earthy. Gets you up in the morning without the devil's wobble. You're not pretending to know what bohea is. Don't worry, I'll tell you. It's a black tea, originally from the Wui Mountains of China, highly prized and heavily exported in the 18th century. For pirates, it was the bread and butter blend. Strong, durable, bitter in just the right way. And unlike rum, it didn't go stale or spoil. Even after weeks at sea, a good tea brick held its flavor. Rum? Sometimes it turned to something that might legally qualify as paint thinner. Back on deck, the sun dips low, casting the sea in molten gold. You sip your cup and think about the journey those leaves took, from a misty hillside in China, into a merchant's chest, onto a ship, through cannon fire, and finally, into your hands. Tea, for pirates, wasn't just a drink. It was a trophy, a symbol that they'd outwitted empire. The more you think about it, the more it makes sense. Pirates didn't just want to steal treasure. They wanted to flip the script, take the spoils of the powerful, and use them on their own terms. And what better way to spit in the eye of empire than to steal its favorite beverage and brew it on a stolen stove? So the next time someone scoffs at the idea of pirates drinking tea, remind them, it wasn't about being delicate. It was about being deliberate. And on these seas, every deliberate choice mattered. The sun rises like a lazy ember through a patch of early morning mist, casting long golden stripes across the deck. You blink into the light, groggy but oddly refreshed. Last night's tea, a surprisingly spicy blend laced with ginger and something that might have been pepper, settled your stomach better than any stiff drink ever could. You stretch, and it hits you. No sore head, no dry mouth, no mysterious bruises from unremembered shenanigans. You're not just awake, you're functional. A miracle at sea. That's when the ship's doctor, or rather, the closest thing these pirates have to one, beckons you below with a crooked finger. Time you learned why we drink leaves and not firewater, he mutters, leading you into a cramped cabin stacked high with apothecary jars, bundles of dried herbs, and what might once have been a medical textbook, now used as a coaster. He pulls out a small wooden box. Inside, dried lemon slices, a puck of crystallized ginger, and loose-leaf green tea. This, he says, shaking it gently like a maraca, saves more lives than that cursed rum ever did. You're about to laugh, but he's serious. And he's right. Welcome to the scurvy section. Scurvy, the old sailor's plague. The one where your gums rot, your joints swell, and your teeth fall out like dominoes in a gale. Caused by a lack of vitamin C. It killed more sailors than battle or storms. For centuries, ships stocked rum, biscuits, and salted meat, all of which had exactly 0 nutrients left after long storage. You can't fight a war or run from a frigate when your skeleton's disintegrating from the inside out. Now here's where it gets interesting. Tea on its own doesn't have much vitamin C, especially after boiling. But pirates weren't drinking plain tea. They were steeping it with lemon peels, dried citrus, and in some lucky cases, tamarind or even pineapple rind salvaged from tropical ports. It was the perfect delivery system, hot, soothing, and filled with subtle nutrients. And tea had another edge. You could drink more of it. Let's face it, If you had to choose between chewing a lime wedge and sipping a spiced citrus brew while watching the sunrise off Madagascar, you'd take the tea. So did they. Historians still argue whether pirates knew they were fighting scurvy with tea, or whether they just stumbled into it by chasing flavor and comfort. Some think they copied Chinese or Indian sailors, who'd long known about herbal teas with health benefits. Others believe it was pure dumb luck. Regardless, the results were real. The British Navy didn't officially adopt lemon juice as a scurvy preventative until the late 18th century, long after pirate crews had started mixing fruit peels and leaves in their mugs. Pirates, by necessity, were experimental. When your life depends on staying upright, you try everything. Here's a quirky fact. Some pirate ships reportedly carried a rotating stock of citrus trees in barrels, letting them grow while at sea. Not large, just shrubs, really, but enough to pluck a few leaves or fruits during a long voyage. Imagine ducking cannon fire while trying to keep your lime bush from tipping over. And that gunpowder tea you smelled earlier? Turns out it was prized not just for its caffeine, but for how it masked the bitterness of medicinal brews. A tea base could carry all sorts of additives: willow bark for pain, mint for nausea, or cloves for toothaches, which, let's be honest, were just a ticking time bomb in a world with no dentists. You head back up as the crew gathers for what they cheekily call the steep. It's part breakfast, part medicine, part bonding ritual. One man even stirs in a spoonful of molasses, something salvaged from a Dutch sloop last week. Another drops a bit of hardtack into his mug, letting it soak into a sad, squishy mess that passes for porridge. Pirate healthcare wasn't glamorous, but it was surprisingly effective for its time. And then there's the mental side. Tea, unlike rum, sharpened the senses. A man on tea could aim a musket straight, swing from the rigging, and not miss a handhold. He could think, plan, react. In close quarters, during ship-to-ship combat or boarding raids, alertness saved lives. Groggy reflexes? You be shark bait. And here comes the kicker. Multiple journals recovered from pirate-friendly ports like Nassau, and all Saint Marie mentioned specific tea preferences by crew. That's right, these guys had opinions. One group favored green tea with dried mango. Another blended black tea with peppercorns for spirit. In at least one case, a mutiny nearly broke out over someone hoarding orange peel. Let's pause to appreciate that. Pirates, supposedly the wildest, loosest crew on the seas, arguing about tea etiquette. That's like a biker gang fighting over latte art. But it speaks volumes about what tea meant to them. It wasn't just health. It wasn't just warmth. It was culture. A small, private moment in a dangerous, uncertain life. Even the captain joins the steep, sitting among his men, stirring a copper mug with the back end of spoon. You notice something then? Nobody's drunk. Nobody's stumbling. Nobody's yelling nonsense into the wind. These pirates are focused, calm, and in the lull between ship repairs and storm clouds, that calm is worth more than gold. You take another sip, tasting lemon and a trace of honey. It's not rum. It doesn't blast your senses or singe your throat, but it makes you feel, just for a moment, balanced. And on a pirate ship, that's the rarest treasure of all. The wind sharpens as the day draws on, slicing through the rigging like a violin bow over strings. You're perched near the quarterdeck, watching a crewman scrape barnacles off the hull with the kind of precision that only comes from practice or caffeine. Another is coiling rope in perfect figure eights while humming something suspiciously like a lullaby. There's no staggering, no slurred sea shanties. No one's trying to sword fight the mast. And that, it turns out, isn't just luck or personality. It's economics. The truth? Rum was getting expensive. You lean against the rail, sipping the second or third brew of the day. This time a smoky blend, likely a rough lapsang with hints of ash and spice. It tastes like a campfire in your mouth, but you don't hate it. Beside you, the ship's quartermaster fiddles with a tiny abacus and a much larger frown. He's muttering about casks and coins, about margins and markups. And suddenly, it clicks. Pirates didn't switch to tea just for health or clarity. They switched because tea made sense. See, by the mid-18th century, rum had become a key economic asset in the Atlantic trade triangle. Sugar plantations in the Caribbean churned out molasses, which was shipped to New England and distilled into rum. That rum was then traded across West Africa for enslaved people, who were transported back to the Caribbean to fuel the sugar cycle. Ugly history, absolutely, but crucial context. As demand for rum exploded, so did its price. British naval contracts soaked up massive quantities, and colonial governments started taxing the stuff like it was liquid gold. For pirates trying to stock their ships, that meant one thing. Buying rum legally became an absolute joke. It was either steal it or skip it, and stealing was riskier than it used to be, especially with increasing patrols cracking down on the very same smuggler routes pirates once thrived on. Tea, on the other hand, practically littering the seafloor. Thanks to the British East India Company's bloated trade practices, enormous quantities of tea were being shipped, dumped, underpriced, and occasionally accidentally lost to storms that might have looked suspiciously like cannon fire. Every time an East Indiaman went down or was captured, crates of tea ended up in pirate hands. Even better, tea was light, compact, easy to transport, and didn't slosh around causing barrel leaks in rough seas. A solid tea brick could last months. Rum needed barrels, space, and constant repair from leakage or evaporation. Historians still debate whether pirates truly understood the long-term financial benefits of tea over rum, or if it was more of a byproduct of their raiding targets. Some argue that as East Indiamen became more common prey, pirates simply adapted to the loot. But the smarter crews clearly noticed the margin difference. Sell rum, drink tea. Here's a cheeky little detail. In 1721, a Dutch merchant log references an unnamed pirate crew near Java who refused a shipment of spiced rum but negotiated a trade for tea bricks and ginger root. Why? Too much leakage in casks. The record reads, "Lost more than gain." You can almost hear the accountant sighing through history. You shuffle down to the storage hold again, and this time the crates aren't neat. They're marked in different handwritings, some chalk, some ink, some scratched in with knives. Makabari, Sweetleaf, Nassau Dust. These aren't just stolen goods. They're inventory, and pirates, surprisingly, were good at inventory. A big reason? They operated under articles, written contracts that governed everything from punishment to profit splits. And among those agreements, beverage rations. Rum was often limited, hoarded for celebration or negotiation. Tea became the daily standard. It wasn't about austerity, it was about utility. Quirky fact, some crews issued tokens or chits good for one steep, used to regulate consumption and prevent theft. Imagine standing in line after your shift, handing over a scrimshaw carved token in exchange for a mug of hot brew. Less yo-ho-ho, and more punch my loyalty card. Even taverns in pirate-friendly ports began to adapt. In Nassau, it's said that a tea house called the Tipsy Kettle served loose-leaf infusions spiked with just a hint of rum, enough to make the sailors feel rebellious without turning the place into a brawl. Pirates who spent weeks at sea came ashore not to drink themselves into oblivion, but to try new blends, show off stolen porcelain mugs, and swap steeping methods like trading cards. And then there's resale. A barrel of rum took up space and required heavy security in port. But tea? Pirates could sell a few bricks at the market, bribe a customs official with another, and still have enough for personal use. No wonder pirate economy nerds, yes, they existed, started running numbers in favor of leaf over liquor. On deck, the quartermaster is still grumbling, this time about shrinkage from the last grog shipment. Leaks again, he mutters. Then he picks up a paper-wrapped tea brick, pats it like a baby, and says, "You never betray me, sweetheart." The man kisses tea. In public. That's where we are now. You sit with him as he breaks down the math. A single tea brick, weighing less than a cannonball, could yield over 200 cups. It stored easily, didn't rot, didn't attract weevils, could be traded, gifted, or sipped slowly across a month. And if you steeped the leaves twice, even better. By contrast, rum spoiled morale if misused. Pirates weren't angels, but they knew when too much rum made a ship sluggish, lazy, or mutinous. Tea wasn't just cheaper, it was smarter. And here's where it gets ironic. By choosing tea, Pirates were unintentionally aligning themselves with the very empire they were rebelling against. British society was going mad for tea, associating it with civility, control, and upper-class sensibility. And yet, halfway around the world, rebels and thieves were adopting the same habit. Not out of politeness, but because it was cheap, potent, and effective. The difference? The pirates didn't add milk. The rain rolls in fast. One of those sudden ocean tantrums where the sky flips from calm to chaos without so much as a warning squawk from the gulls. You take shelter near the forward mast as the crew springs into action, reefing sails and lashing down crates. But something odd catches your eye. Amid the splashing water, shouting voices, and soaked wood, one man dives into the hold. Not to save gunpowder, but to secure the tea. You follow him, half out of curiosity, half out of disbelief. He's already tucked 2 crates under oilcloth and mutters. Company labels, worth double if you don't soak the ink. It takes you a beat, but then you see it, faint but still visible. The stamped mark of the British East India Company. The infamous lion and unicorn. And suddenly you get it. Pirates weren't just stealing tea. They were hijacking one of the world's most powerful monopolies. The British East India Company, or EIC, was more than just a business. In the 1700s, it was practically a government. It had ships, armies, forts, and a ruthless obsession with control. It didn't just move tea from Asia to Europe. It dominated the trade with an iron ledger. But here's the problem. When you're shipping thousands of crates across thousands of miles, you create a lot of opportunity. And that's where pirates came in. East Indiamen were massive ships, bulky, slow, and ripe for ambush. Their hold were crammed with silks, spices, opium, and tea bricks wrapped in parchment, and sometimes even silk. Pirates weren't just picking them off. They were cracking into the lifeline of the empire's economy. And those crates marked with the company's seal, they weren't just cargo. They were black market gold. Historians still argue whether pirates actively sought out EIC ships or simply raided whatever crossed their path. Some suggest that known company routes became unofficial hunting lanes. Others believe that pirates had informants, port-side workers, disgruntled sailors, or rival traders who tipped them off about high-value cargo. But there's something undeniably intentional in how pirate crews handled tea from EIC ships. They stored it differently. They wrapped it tighter, and they sold it selectively to buyers who cared more about provenance than flavor. A crate with an intact company seal could fetch triple the price of an unmarked brick. You duck into a side cabin, a little office maybe. The desk inside is cluttered with notes, manifests, and, oddly enough, a wax stamp bearing a lion rampant. Beside it, a ledger written in sharp, careful handwriting lists dates, ports, tea weights, and prices. It looks more like something out of a counting house than a pirate ship. One entry catches your eye. Bohea, 3 crates, ex Blenheim, unbroken seals, 22 shillings per. You do the math in your head, and yeah, someone's turning leaf into loot. This isn't casual plunder. This is a tea operation. Quirky fact for you. Some pirates didn't just sell company tea, they repackaged it. There are surviving wrappers mimicking official EIC branding, used to pass off lower quality blends as premium. That's right, pirate counterfeiters. Slap a fancy crest on it, and suddenly your bitter floor sweepings from a Portuguese schooner become exclusive Bohea Reserve. Sound familiar? You step back out on deck just as the rain fades and the sky softens to gray. The crew is already boiling water. Storm or no storm, tea waits for no one. One man hands you a mug and says, "That's the company's finest, that is." You sip, expecting magic. It tastes like strong, bitter leaf water. Not bad, not great. But the branding? Impeccable. Here's this strange duality. Pirates despised authority, but when it came to commerce, they played the game. Steal from the richest, sell to the eager, and if possible, make it look fancy. And what did the company do about it? Not much, at least not directly. Their ships were often heavily armed. Yes, but their priorities leaned more toward protecting ports and monopolies than chasing down rogue vessels. Pirates, for the most part, operated in the gaps, in that murky, unregulated world between colonies, where company influenced trade and law became suggestion. Still, the EIC did care enough to complain. Letters between company officials mention frequent interference with shipments, especially in the Indian Ocean and off the African coast. One grumpy bureaucrat even referred to pirates as floating leeches on His Majesty's mercantile vein. A bit dramatic, but not wrong. And while rum was typically associated with smugglers, tea became the smuggler's currency. In colonial America, for instance, black market tea, often stolen from EIC vessels by pirates, flooded ports like Charleston and Boston. Some of the tea thrown into the harbor during the Boston Tea Party? Yeah, there's a non-zero chance that it passed through a pirate's hands at least once. Back on the ship, the first mate is organizing a display. Seriously, on a ratty old table. He's laid out 3 bricks of tea like a jeweler showing diamonds. He explains that one came from Canton, another from Calcutta, and one, he grins here, was liberated from ship so fancy the crates had silk tassels. He offers you a sniff of each. You oblige. One smells floral, one's peppery, one just smells old. But it doesn't matter. What matters is the seal. The proof that you're drinking what the East India Company didn't want you to have. It's a power move, a pirate's toast to rebellion. You're not just sipping tea, you're flipping the empire the bird. And in the hush that follows, you realize how quietly radical that is. These outlaws weren't just taking treasure, they were taking control of supply chains, of symbols, of taste. Rum was rebellion's fuel, yes, but tea was its currency. The sea is glassy this morning, a rare lull that turns the horizon into a silver mirror. You stretch, expecting the usual call to haul ropes or patch sails. But today, something unusual is brewing. Literally, the captain's ordered a ceremonial steep. You squint. Ceremonial? On a pirate ship? The phrase alone feels like someone wearing lace gloves to a tavern brawl. But the crew's already moving, clearing space, laying out a crate as a table, and even unrolling a stained canvas that seems to serve no purpose other than to mark the occasion. You've stumbled into something strange, something theatrical, something suspiciously polite. A tea ceremony. One by one, crew members file in with chipped mugs and mismatched cups. Someone's polished a battered silver teapot. Another has tucked a flower, definitely stolen, into his shirt. You try not to laugh, but it's hard not to when a pirate with a face tattoo starts arguing over steeping time like a Parisian sommelier. This, apparently, is a ritual, and not just any ritual, a mock aristocratic affair, half sincere, half satire, and fully pirate. They call it taking the empire's brew. It's their way of poking fun at the British upper crust while enjoying the very thing those powdered wigs obsess over: tea. Only here, on the high seas, there's no bone china. Just tin, clay, and whatever didn't break in the last raid. The first mate raises his mug with dramatic flair. To the leaves we stole, the lips we burnt, and the fools who paid full price. A round of laughter, then silence. You sip your brew. This one has mint and something sweet, maybe honey, and try to grasp the scene. Rough hands cradle delicate motions. Hardened men sniffing leaves. A pirate named Gutbucket gently swirls his cup like a sommelier at Versailles. It's absurd. It's perfect. But beneath the mockery, there's something real here. Respect for the ritual. These ceremonies, however tongue-in-cheek, offer a break from chaos, a reminder that even in lawlessness, you can have a little structure, a little tradition, even if you made it up. Historians still argue whether such tea ceremonies actually happened, or whether this idea is built more from myth and romantic accounts from travelers who passed through pirate havens. There's no official pirate etiquette manual, after all, but several journals from the era mention gentlemanly tea affairs aboard rogue ships, especially among former naval officers turned pirates. It's plausible, maybe even probable. One curious detail from a log recovered near Tortuga describes a ceremony led by a pirate named French Tom, who wore a powdered wig and insisted everyone refer to him as Sir Thomas during the affair. He made his crew drink their tea in silence for exactly 4 minutes and kept a handkerchief folded like a lily on his lap. Satire? Maybe, but the ritual stuck. You glance at the captain, who's now stirring his tea with a compass needle. We mock him, sure, he says, catching your eye, but don't be fooled. The rituals keep us sane. And they do. Pirates were democratic in their own brutal way, but a ship at sea needed routine. The tea ceremony, fake pomp and all, gave them a small illusion of control in a world where the weather could turn fatal in 10 minutes and cannonballs didn't care if you'd slept. And here's your quirky tidbit. On one pirate vessel, a crew member carved a tiny tea table, complete with folding legs, that was pulled out only during these mock ceremonies. They called it the Royal Mess, and whoever spilled their tea had to swab the deck in full view, wearing the teapot as a hat. Yes, really. As you sip, you catch pieces of conversation swirling around like steam. The ship's cook is debating the merits of hibiscus over clove. Someone else insists that too much ginger makes a man mean. There's even talk of starting a tea log, where each brew's recipe gets recorded. You ask the captain if this happens often. Every moon cycle, unless we're fighting or sinking, he says. Sometimes both. Then, without warning, a solemn bell rings. The ceremony ends. No one claps. They just nod, toss back the last of their brew, and get back to work. It's strange how fast the transformation happens. One moment you're at a mock salon with pirates reciting bad haiku over herbal tea. The next you're watching a crewman hoist a barnacle-crusted anchor while humming an old Welsh drinking song. The shift is seamless, elegant even, but you realize something else. This ritual isn't just about fun. It's about identity. By mocking the British elite's obsession with tea, pirates turned the drink into something uniquely theirs. They took the Empire's most prized symbol of civility and twisted it into rebellion. And it wasn't just about appearances. Tea was now part of their daily rhythm, their cultural code. They shared blends the way soldiers shared letters from home. They gossiped about steeping styles. They competed over whose mug had the most character. And sometimes, when the moon was high and no other ship was in sight, they turned a simple cup of tea into theater. You head below deck again, where someone's carving a fresh motto into a beam above the galley. Steel with honor, steep with flair. Not bad for pirates. The coastline creeps up like a secret, wrapped in mist and silence. No bustling port, no creaking docks, no watchtowers peering down. Just a hidden cove carved into rock, with greenery spilling over cliffs like lazy seaweed on a stone bowl. You've arrived at one of the Caribbean's best-kept secrets, a pirate smuggler's haven. And here, unlike the rum-soaked ports of legend, tea is king. The ship slips into the cove with practiced ease, sails trimmed, and anchor dropped almost without a sound. No cannon salute, no boisterous singing. This isn't a celebration port. This is business. And business, it turns out, is brisk. As the rowboats head for shore, crates of tea are carefully loaded in, wrapped in oilcloth, sealed with wax, and often marked not with names, but with symbols. A hawk, a crescent, a serpent. You ask what they mean. A nearby sailor shrugs. Smuggler's sigils, he says. Tell the buyer where it came from without anyone else knowing what's inside. The hidden beach buzzes with quiet commerce. Under the cover of palm trees and craggy outcrops, pirates trade, tea not for gold, but for tools, powder, spices, even maps. You expect rum to dominate the trade, but here it's practically ignored. One trader offers a keg of the stuff for a half brick of oolong. The pirate declines. Too leaky, he says. Tea's tidy. And he's right. Tea doesn't spoil in the sun. It doesn't draw attention from passing patrols. It doesn't require barrels or careful balancing. It's compact, profitable, and, for the right buyer, more valuable than silver. Historians still debate the extent of tea's value in pirate trade networks. Some argue it was merely supplemental, a bonus haul when attacking merchant ships. Others point to evidence that pirate alliances and neutral smugglers prioritized tea over alcohol for practical and economic reasons. Either way, in places like this cove, remote, uncharted, and built on quiet transactions, tea was currency. You wander deeper into the jungle path, where lean-to huts and thatch stalls emerge in small clusters. One is selling dried herbs and spices, saffron, cinnamon, dried orange peel. Another has tins of loose-leaf tea from at least 4 continents, all labeled in a messy scrawl. A third offers ornate teacups made from carved horn and salvaged ceramics. You've stepped into a pirate farmer's market, but the theme is entirely leaf. Quirky tidbit: there's a teasmith here. Seriously, a woman with ink-stained fingers and a blade on each hip who claims to blend teas to fit the spirit. For one wiry sailor, she mixes black tea with dried hibiscus and nutmeg. For another, gunpowder green with sea salt and dried tamarind. When you ask what she give you, she grins and says chamomile and danger. You'll take that as a compliment. At the edge of the cove, another pirate is organizing the days, taking his satchels and hollowed-out barrels. His mug rests nearby, half full, steam curling into the humid air. This place, he tells you, not looking up, is where the real business gets done. Not just with buyers, but between us. He explains, ships come and go here not just to unload stolen goods, but to broker deals, routes to avoid patrols, safe harbors, crew exchanges. And yes, all over a cup of tea. Tea is neutral. Tea is civilized. Tea is the one thing pirates don't brawl over, because to share it is to show respect. You sit by a fire pit and watch 2 captains negotiate. Their ships had once exchanged cannon fire. Now, they're sipping ginger mint blends in silence before each takes out a map and marks safe channels with the butt of a spoon. It's surreal. It's strangely beautiful. And it makes sense. Rum is noise. Tea is strategy. One captain explains it best. Rum gets you loose. Tea keeps you sharp. We make plans here. You don't plan with rum in your gut. That line hits you harder than the sea breeze. Because as you walk through the camp, you realize how much care goes into tea's journey here. Pirates guard their leaves like coin. Some have personal stashes, wrapped in cloth and tucked into boots. Others carry ceramic flasks, sealed tight to keep the humidity out. The truly elite? They've got infusers carved from ivory or bone. Family heirlooms passed down with pride. And back on the ship, the vibe changes once crates are restocked. There's a reverence to it. No one jostles. No one complains. Each man receives a share of the daily blend, measured out by the quartermaster with a tiny brass scoop. The same care you'd give to powder or gold. You lean over and ask a nearby sailor, "Do you always come to this cove?" He nods. "When we can. There's others like it. Off Madagascar, in the Azores, even one near Newfoundland. But this one," he taps his mug, "this one's the best for leaf. It's not just the tea. It's the system, the quiet barter, the shared understanding that while loot and weapons may come and go, a good cup of tea, that's sacred." As you prepare to cast off again, sails rippling in the salt wind, you catch one last glance at the shoreline. A smuggler lighting a kettle fire, a parrot chirping from its perch, and a cup, half full, resting on a crate marked Canton, 1724. And you understand, tea wasn't just a drink. It was an ecosystem. The waves slap gently against the hull now, rhythmic as a heartbeat. You've been at sea for several days since leaving the Smuggler's Cove, and life aboard has settled into a pattern. Work, watch, sleep, and the ever-reliable intervals of tea. But today, something different brews below deck. You wake to the familiar clink of tin mugs and the dull scrape of a fire-stoked kettle. But the smell drifting upward is not familiar. It's sharper, pungent, peppery. You follow your nose to the galley, where the cook stands proudly over a steaming pot. "Medicinal steep," he announces, grinning with far too many teeth missing. And that's your cue to learn about one of piracy's lesser-known, but most important strategies: brewing for survival. The ship's makeshift medic appears behind you, holding a bundle of something brown and shriveled. "Cinnamon bark," he says, "for inflammation and bad moods." Turns out, pirates didn't just brew tea for comfort or culture. They brewed it to feel better. No trained doctors, no pharmacies, and no real hygiene to speak of. That mint herbs, spices, and tea leaves became their first line of defense against every plague the sea could throw at them. Today's brew is a gunpowder black tea base, spiked with grated ginger, cloves, dried orange peel, and a dollop of something honey adjacent. It looks suspicious. It tastes worse, but it hits your chest like a warm cannonball and clears your sinuses faster than a nor'easter. You blink, you sweat, you suddenly feel great, and you're not alone. The entire crew is drinking it, some grumbling, some sighing with relief, a few swearing by it like it's divine nectar. One says it cures seasickness. Another insists it helps his joints. A third claims it fixed his ghost toe. You wisely don't ask. Historians still argue whether pirate medicine was deliberate or just desperate improvisation. Some think crews learned from Asian or African herbalists while abroad. Others point to captured sailors and port women who shared remedies in exchange for gold or protection. Either way, what's clear is this. Pirates weren't entirely reckless when it came to their health. Quirky tidbit, there's one recovered letter, written by a sailor aboard a pirate ship near Mauritius, that mentions a healing tea brewed for the captain during a fever. The recipe included lemongrass, black pepper, cinnamon, and crushed ants. Yes, ants. Apparently, they believed the tiny critters held heat that could sweat the sickness out. Gross? Sure, but hey, he lived. You linger in the galley, where the cook begins prepping the next steep. Mint, chamomile, dried mango leaf. For calming, he says, we're chasing a Portuguese brig later. Don't want the men jumpy. That's the beauty of tea aboard a pirate ship. It wasn't just reactive, it was preventive. Before battles, before storms, even before port visits, the crew drank specialized brews. Some were meant to sharpen, others to soothe. Some, to be blunt, helped move things along in the digestive department. Pirate captains encouraged it, too. A crew that slept well, aimed straight, and didn't vomit over the rail in the middle of a raid. That's a crew that wins. You head topside, sipping your own brew, something earthy with a hint of citrus. The deck smells faintly of smoke and cloves. You pass a sailor cleaning a pistol while humming. Another patches a sail with a needle between his teeth. No one's arguing. No one's half asleep. This ship doesn't feel like the chaos-fueled pirate stories you grew up with. It feels balanced, functional, almost like a mobile monastery with cutlasses and grudges. And when the lookout shouts that the Portuguese brig is on the horizon, no one panics. There's no drunken sprinting, no slurred commands. The men are focused, ready, bellies warm with ginger, and their minds clear as the sky. That's the thing rum never gave them. Rum dulled the pain, but also the reflexes. Tea gave you a fighting chance. You brace for the chase. Sails unfurl. Orders ring out. The ship lunges forward like a beast waking up. And through it all, mugs are clutched tightly. Most empty, some sloshing. You overhear one man yell, "We take their sugar, they take our smoke." And it's unclear if he means gunpowder or the lapsang blend. Either way, you're moving fast. Wind in your ears, wood underfoot, and the distant silhouette of a trade ship that doesn't know what's coming. You realize, in that adrenaline-soaked moment, just how practical tea has become aboard. It's armor. It's medicine. It's ritual. And more than once, it's the reason someone got back up after a rough night or a rougher storm. There's a story passed around that Bartholomew Roberts, Black Bart, used to drink a special infusion of orange leaf and crushed cardamom before every raid. Said it cleared the fog from the soul. No one knows if it's true, but Roberts did command over 400 ships without losing his edge. Coincidence? You cling to the rail as the ship draws closer to the brig. The crew moves with precision. Not fast, not frantic, just efficient. And you realize this is what a tea-fueled pirate crew looks like. Not raging beasts, not woozy sword flailers, but sharp-eyed, steady-handed professionals with just a hint of herbal bravado. The chase is on. The wind howls, and deep below, the galley kettle hisses softly, already brewing the post-battle blend. Because pirates might win with steel and strategy, but they recover with tea. The sun is setting in a blaze of orange and violet as the brig fades into the distance, now stripped of its cargo and dignity. The raid was swift, clean, almost surgical. No screaming, no panic frenzy, Just focused pirates, calm voices, and precise movement. And now they're gathered on deck, mugs in hand, sipping quietly as the sky dims. You expected a victory toast, maybe even some long-lost barrel of stolen rum rolled out from below. But instead, a fresh batch of tea is being poured, thick with cinnamon and honey, spiked ever so slightly with clove. You take a sip. It tastes like warmth and triumph. This is where it all becomes blindingly clear. Pirate ships weren't just tea drinkers out of necessity. They were tea drinkers in contrast, deliberate contrast, to their main adversaries, the navies that chased them. In particular, the British Royal Navy. You flash back to your history classes. Sailors in red coats, strapped boots, polished buttons, and a strict rum ration policy that shaped generations of service. The daily grog, a half pint of rum mixed with water, doled out to every sailor twice a day. It was meant to boost morale, ward off mutiny, and compensate for the horrendous food. And let's be fair, on long, damp voyages it did help. But it also made things fuzzy. Have you ever tried to reload a flintlock half drunk, one pirate asks, balancing his mug on the rail? No wonder we win. That's the distinction. Navy life was regulated, hierarchical, and hazy. Pirates, by comparison, needed to be agile, aware, quick to vote, quick to change direction, quick to fight. For them, rum was a liability. Historians still argue whether pirate ships were truly more efficient than Navy vessels. But many scholars agree on one thing. Pirate crews often made better time between ports, handled their ships with more fluid discipline, and, surprisingly, experienced fewer accidents per mile. And while rum might not be the only reason for that gap, it certainly didn't help the Navy's case. In fact, some deserters from naval vessels reported being relieved to find their pirate captures didn't drink as heavily. One famously wrote that his new crewmates were of sharper wit and keener sense, aided perhaps by their love of steeped herbs and citrus concoctions. That's right, people defected to pirates for the tea. You step back considering that. All those stories you've heard, all the cliches. They paint pirates as wild-eyed drunkards staggering across the deck, rum spilling, slurring orders. But now, standing here with your own mug, watching a crew quietly clean weapons and re-rig sails after a clean victory, the picture shifts. Pirates weren't wild. They were wired. They moved on caffeine, not chaos. And it wasn't just for battles. Tea was crucial in day-to-day maintenance, especially during storms, long hauls, and tight repairs. Rum blurred vision and weakened judgment. Tea, especially the stronger blends like Assam or Gunpowder Green, kept you focused, even jittery sure but useful. There's a cheeky little tidbit you hear from the galley cook. During one storm off the coast of Hispaniola, a particularly well-teed crew managed to navigate through 30-foot swells while patching a torn mainsail, res-tacking loose cargo, and finishing a pot of citrus and fennel infusion. He says it with pride, then adds, but a Navy crew would have been puking into their boots. You laugh, until you realize he's probably right. You start noticing more signs. Tea tins tucked into coat pockets. Dinnet spoons worn smooth from years of stirring. Even personal tea stash bags, hidden behind hammocks or tucked inside pistol belts. Everyone has their preferred blend, their go-to herbs. Tea wasn't just communal, it was personal. And unlike in a Navy, where alcohol was doled out as part of a monotonous schedule, pirates actually chose their tea. They experimented, mixed, created brews for sleep, focus, pain, even courage. One man offers you his raid blend, a potent mix of black tea, cracked pepper, ginger, and something he calls lightning bark. You ask what that is. No idea, he says, but it makes you brave. The more you listen, the more you understand. Tea gave pirates control in a world built to strip it away. The Navy told you when to eat, when to sleep, when to drink, and what to feel. Pirate ships weren't utopias, but they offered autonomy. A vote, a voice, a choice of leaves. Even a mugs tell a story. Navy mugs were uniform. Standard issue. Pirate mugs? Wildly varied. One is made of coconut shell, another carved from driftwood, a third painted with sea monsters. One man uses a porcelain cup cracked in half and riveted together with wire. East India Company, he says, smiling. Still better than anything they drink in London. And there's another layer. Tea gave pirates a different kind of camaraderie. It wasn't loud. It was shared. A calm moment mid-chaos. Something warm in the hands during a freezing night watch. A reason to sit down and talk about where they'd been, what they'd stolen, who they missed. You're handed a night steep, chamomile, lemon balm, and dried lavender. It smells like sleep. You sip slowly as the ship sails quiet, the stars just beginning to blink overhead. Lanterns sway, and laughter murmurs in the dark. It's not rowdy. It's soft. This isn't the pirate life you expected, but it's one that feels strangely right. You're ashore again, this time in a ragged port town that smells of salt, fish, and yesterday's sins. The docks creak underfoot as you wander through alleys lined with laundry, cats, and people who've clearly lived harder lives than most. This is no polished colonial outpost. It's a backwater where smugglers and pirates blend in, and rumors travel faster than cannonballs. And tonight, those rumors are brewing over tea. You duck into a low-lit tavern called the Burnt Biscuit, its walls leaning at uncertain angles, its roof held together by hope and rope. Inside, it's nothing like you imagined. No one's swinging from the rafters. There's music, yes. Someone's plucking a stringed instrument with 3 of its strings missing. But the crowd is hushed. Why? Because everyone's listening to a man with a voice like molasses and eyes that be seen too many things. He's telling a tale. And not just any tale, a tea tale. 'Twas a night like this, he begins, swirling a copper mug in his hand, when Captain Pike ordered a double-strong brew before a raid. We was low on powder, and morale was thinner than a wet sail. So he had the cook throw in ginger, pepper, even a splash of clove oil. What we drank that night weren't tea. It was courage by the cup. The crowd nods. Some chuckle, but no one interrupts. Because here, in this ramshackle tavern, tall tales of tea hold as much weight as stories of gold. That's your cue to realize. Pirate folklore wasn't just about buried treasure and sea monsters. It was full of tea-drunk mutinies, herbal hallucinations, and legendary brews that supposedly gave men the strength to fight entire navies. Quirky tidbit. There's a long-standing tavern tale about a mutiny aboard the Clever Mabel, where the crew dumped the rum overboard and replaced it with a crate of pu'er they'd stolen from a merchant in Calcutta. According to the legend, they renamed the ship the Gentle Leaf and ran peaceful raids, robbing without killing, toasting with oolong instead of brandy, and using a biscuit tin as their official chest of loot. No one knows if it's true, but in this tavern, it might as well be gospel. You sip your own brew, strong, dark, slightly bitter, and listen as a new storyteller steps forward, a woman this time. She spins a yarn about a ship where the quartermaster poisoned the tea supply after losing a bet. Steeped with spite, she calls it, and to this day, no one brews cinnamon without flinching. Everyone laughs, but you notice something important. These aren't just jokes. They're cultural memory, a kind of oral history passed around over mugs instead of manuscripts. And in many of them, tea is the central character, the catalyst for fortune or folly, the thing that marked one crew from another. Historians still argue whether these stories are more than just entertainment. Some believe they're rooted in real events, exaggerated over time. Others see them as a kind of psychological balm, tales that made life at sea a little more bearable. After all, when the nights are long and the wind won't stop whining, what better comfort than a familiar tale and a warm cup? A tall, hunched man slides onto the stool next to you. His fingers are stained from ink or tobacco. You can't tell which. You want the real truth about pirates, he says, not waiting for an answer. We didn't fight for gold. We fought for flavor. A good cup of tea meant you lived like a king, if only for 10 minutes. And honestly, that sounds about right. As the evening stretches into night, more mugs are filled, more stories told. One man claims he once steeped tea in seawater and saw his dead parrot in the leaves. Another insists that peppermint tea makes you invisible to sharks. Someone starts singing a sea shanty rewritten entirely around the word Earl Grey. It's chaos, but it's joyful chaos. There's no brawling, no broken furniture, just the warm hum of 100 voices woven together by a shared tradition. And yes, the mugs are chipped, the blend's inconsistent, and no one agrees on how long to steep chamomile. But no one seems to care. Tea here isn't just a drink. It's a vessel for memory. You step outside for a moment, letting the sea breeze wash over you. The tavern's glow spills into the street, laughter echoing in your ears. You think back to the Navy's grog halls, loud, angry, half flooded with sloshed rum, and compare it to what you just saw. This is something different, softer, more human. Pirates, you realize, weren't always raging beasts with knives in their teeth. They were often just tired, sunburned men and women looking for comfort in the dark. And sometimes that comfort came in a hot mug and a good story. You head back inside, just in time to hear someone shout, "Tell us the one about the cinnamon storm," and the tavern erupts in cheers. The kettle whistles again. The tales continue, and tea flows like legend. You're back on board, the moon high and the sea calm, when you hear something that makes you pause. Dao Kadao, Fei Chong Dao, a crewman murmurs. You don't recognize the words, but the tone is soft, reverent. He's pouring tea slowly from one mug to another, back and forth, as if measuring not volume, but meaning. The light from a swinging lantern casts shifting patterns on the deck. You sit beside him, curious. He smiles, offers you a cup. It's what the monk said he tells you. The way that can be spoken is not the eternal way. And just like that, you step into another layer of pirate tea culture, one rarely talked about but impossible to ignore. The surprising flow of Asian philosophies into the pirate world, often carried in on the same ships as the tea itself. This pirate, Li Shun, he tells you, is from Macau originally. A sailor, not a soldier. He'd been press-ganged onto an East India man, jumped ship during a raid, and ended up here. And over time, he shared more than just muscle. He shared meaning. Turns out, pirates didn't just steal crates. They absorbed ideas. And tea wasn't just leaf and water. It was ritual, perspective, even wisdom. Historians still argue how deep these philosophical exchanges ran. Some claim it was shallow, a borrowed chant here, a mimicry of movement there. Others believe certain pirate crews, particularly those operating in the Indian Ocean and South China Sea, actually incorporated Taoist and Buddhist practices into their daily life, especially those connected to tea. Either way, it left an imprint. You see it now. The deliberate way some pirates pour their brew. The quiet space before the first sip. The belief, unspoken but clearly shared, that tea is more than warmth. It's clarity, and it shows up in their slang too. You hear one man mutter, "He's got too much wind in his cup," meaning he's impatient. Another says, "Still the leaves, and you'll see the storm," before climbing into the crow's nest. They're not just drinking, they're thinking through tea. Quirky tidbit. Some pirate captains kept meditation hours at sea. Not officially, of course, but in forced silence during morning steeps. Just 10 to 15 minutes when no one spoke, no orders were shouted, and the crew sat with their brew and their thoughts. Some found it maddening. Others found it sacred. You see one man sitting cross-legged beside a coil of rope, eyes closed, mug held in both hands. Another has etched symbols, likely Chinese, into his cup. You ask about them. He shrugs. "Means peace," he says, or burn. Can't remember. And then there's the art. Carvings in the galley wall show a dragon winding around teacup. One sailor carries prayer beads twisted with dried tea stems. The tattoo on the ship's cook? A teapot mid-pour, inked right over his heart. It's not about cultural accuracy. It's about intention. These men, most of them illiterate, scattered across oceans and languages, found in tea a shared structure, a rhythm, a way to slow time when time was all they had. And perhaps no one represents this better than a man named Panya, who they call the Steepsayer. He doesn't talk much, but each morning he selects the day's blend based on the wind, the crew's mood, the feel of the wood underfoot. And he always mumbles a phrase before the first pot. What we sip, we become. You finally ask someone what he means. He thinks tea reflects the ship's spirit. They say, "Too bitter? We're tense. Too sweet? We're sloppy. Best days are when it's earthy. And there's truth in that. Because when you drink something every day, when you hold it, heat it, smell it, share it, it shapes you. Navy sailors drank rum to forget. Pirates drank tea to notice. You sit quietly beside the crew, your own mug warm in your hands. The stars above are scattered like spilled sugar. The wind is light. And for once, no one says a word. It's a moment at a time. And it's all because of tea. Dawn breaks jagged across the horizon, smeared in streaks of crimson and gold. There's something in the air, sharp, urgent. The crew moves differently this morning, tighter, faster. The lookout has already shouted the news. Sail spotted. Merchant, armed, likely loaded. You feel the shift. Boots thud harder on the planks. Voices drop into gruff tones. And below deck, the kettle's already hissing. No, not rum. Not even close. This is battle tea. The galley is a flurry of steam and bark and crushed leaf. The cook, who now looks more like an alchemist than a chef, mixes black tea with ginger, cayenne, and dried lemon peel. Get the blood hot, keep the hand steady, he says, chuckling darkly. Someone hands you a mug. You sip, and it's like swallowing lightning. It burns down your throat, but it wakes you. Every inch of you. This is the pirate version of a war drum. Caffeine and spice. You follow the crew back above deck, and you see it. How even now, before violence, there's no wobble. No sluggishness. No confusion. These men are sharp, lucid, and frighteningly coordinated. Compare that to the average naval crew, where pre-battle jitters are dulled with sloshed rum and shouting. But here, no rum-soaked bravado. Just focus. Tea doesn't make you fearless. It keeps your fear from turning into chaos. Historians still argue whether pirates consistently replaced rum before battle, but enough journals and anecdotal accounts suggest that many captains encouraged or enforced a dry deck when facing a fight. One such captain, Christopher Condent, was known for ordering sharp steeps before raids, even having the cook infuse them with bitter herbs to bite the nerves. And it's working. You can feel it. The crew is moving with a chill kind of energy. Not manic. Not reckless. Ready. Even the gunners sip from small mugs before slipping behind their long barrels. One rubs ash from his hands and mutters, "No shakes today." Another checks powder, blows into the pan, and says, "This blend's got bite." You believe him. Then it's time. The target comes into view. Broad sails, heavy with wind, her flanks lined with rusted cannons and painted names half worn by salt. She's not defenseless, but she's not ready for this crew. The pirate ship surges forward. Flags unfurl. Muskets are primed. The tea's heat still buzzes in your chest as the first cannon fires. The battle is brief but fierce. You hold on, heart pounding, as pirates swing across ropes with terrifying control. Their movements are clean, no stumbling, no shouting over each other. You see one man vault onto the other ship's deck, parry a cutlass, disarm his opponent with one spin, then pause, just for a second, to take a quick sip from a flask tucked in his belt. You swear it's tea. The merchant crew, on the other hand, is frantic. They're yelling orders, tripping over ropes, some too slow to reload. One stumbles, clearly bleary-eyed, possibly still nursing the grog from last night's watch. The contrast couldn't be clearer. Pirates might not have rules, but they have ritual. And battle tea? That's sacred. You duck behind the main mast as shouting erupts around you. Smoke coils into the sky. But within the chaos, the pirate crew remains composed, like they're dancing to an internal rhythm no one else can hear. A rhythm steeped in caffeine and sharp spices. Then, as suddenly as it began, it ends. The merchant crew surrenders. The cargo hold is theirs. And as they return victorious, soot-covered and sweat-drenched, the pirates don't crack open rum. They pass around another brew. A cool-down steep, someone calls it. Chamomile, lemon balm, a touch of mint. To bring the heart back down. To level the blood after the fire. It's brilliant. Ritualized. Functional. Every step from tension to release guided by a blend of herbs and water. You see a younger crewman, no more than 16, sitting on the railing, clutching his tea like a lifeline. His hands are steady, his eyes wide but clear. My first, he says, didn't freeze up. That pepper's no joke. You nod. You've tasted the blend. It's more than spice, it's focus. Quirky fact. Some pirates brewed battle tea with dried tobacco leaf, just a whisper of it, to spike adrenaline. Others added crushed peppercorn or even a single clove of garlic. The idea wasn't flavor. It was effect. The captain appears beside you, holding a mug the color of burnt mahogany. Rum numbs. Tea sharpens. He says simply, watching his crew work. Tell me what you'd rather have at your side. You don't need to answer. Even the injured are being treated with hot tea compresses, brewed strong and poured into strips of cloth. You help one man wrap his hand, and he smiles weakly. Hurts less when it smells like gingerbread. The sun dips lower as the crew finishes their work. Cargo loaded, sails repaired, and all the while, mugs clink against wood. Tea refilled. Stories already forming. Did you see Jory dodge that saber? Only 'cause he was hopped up on cinnamon lightning. He nearly bit through his own cup. Laughter ripples across the deck. Calm returns. The teapot simmers again. You sit down, mug warm in your hands. It smells like smoke and oranges. Your heartbeat has slowed, but your thoughts are still lit up. Wired, not wild. This is what pirates knew. Control isn't about suppression. It's about focus. Rum drowns the storm. Tea rides it. And on this ship, with this crew, you'd rather ride. The days sail by like songs in the wind. Some bright, some brooding. You've crossed storms, outpaced 2 Navy frigates, and navigated a reef so tight you swear the hull whispered, "Excuse me," as it passed. But now, land looms ahead, sun-drenched and heavy with green. The crew cheers not with drunken yells, but with quiet satisfaction. You've arrived in Madagascar, not the bustling port towns where everyone's watching everyone else's cutlass. No, this is the quiet side. A sleepy anchorage near Île Sainte-Marie, where the water is so clear it turns the whole shadow into an artwork, and the breeze smells of salt, clove, and thatch. Here, in this unofficial pirate republic, no one yells, "Aye," or stomps their boots in swagger. They're too busy counting tea bricks. Seriously, the first thing you see as the crew offloads their latest spoils isn't crates of silver or barrels of rum. It's a collection of neat, waxed-wrapped rectangles, stacked carefully like bricks for a house. They're labeled in chalk, Bohé, Ceylon Dust, green with orange. Leave the rum for the taverns. One pirate mutters as he hoists a crate onto a cart. This is what keeps us running. And he's not wrong. In this part of the world, far from prying British eyes and import taxes, tea isn't just for drinking. It's currency. At the inland trading post, you watch as a pirate negotiates a new sail using 4 bricks of green tea and a bolt of silk. Another trades oolong for flintlocks. Someone else gets a live goat and a sack of tamarind for a half crate of blended Darjeeling. No coins change hands, just leaves. It's surreal, but it makes sense. Rum spoils, powder degrades, gold draws too much attention. But tea keeps. Tea travels. Tea is trusted. Historians still argue how widespread this leaf-based barter economy was, but port records in Madagascar show spikes in tea trades, particularly among pirate-friendly markets and neutral traders looking for stable, non-metal currencies. Some even used pressed bricks as standardized trade weights. A brick of tea for a hatchet, 2 bricks for a horse, 5 bricks for a ship repair and a wink. And let's not forget the social side. You follow a group of pirates into a small, open-air tea house built with driftwood and palm leaves. It's more pavilion than building. No walls, just tables and low stools, all surrounding a central stone fire where the tea is steeped in large kettles. The vibe is half tropical beach cafe, half philosopher's den. The local vendor, a sharp-eyed woman with silver earrings and calloused hands, stirs a brew with a carved wooden ladle. Her blend? Black tea, tamarind, nutmeg, and dried hibiscus. You sip. It's floral and tangy with a kick of spice that makes you sit up straight. She smiles. Good for storms, she says. All around you, pirates lounge in quiet circles. No shouting, no gambling, just the low murmur of trade talk and ship gossip. This is where captains arrange future raids. where maps are updated and alliances struck. Over tea. Tea keeps us civil, says one grizzled man with a tattoo of a compass on his scalp. Rum tears things down. Tea builds it up again. You begin to see the full picture now. On board, tea fueled the daily rhythm. Waking, working, fighting, healing. But ashore, tea created infrastructure, a network of trade, peace, even diplomacy. Here's your quirky tidbit. One pirate leader on Madagascar, often referred to in journals simply as Dutch Tom, reportedly hosted weekly tea councils under a banyan tree. Captains and quartermasters would gather, sip different brews, and settle disputes. No blades, no shouting, just leaves and logic. Supposedly, the only rule was you had to bring your own mug and share your blend. You pass by one such banyan tree, gnarled and towering, where mugs now hang from its lowest limbs like wind chimes. Some are ceramic, others carved from bone or shell. They clink gently in the breeze, a pirate prayer, maybe, or a reminder. A young crewman offers you his blend. He calls it Madagascar Dawn. It's subtle, smoky. You ask what's in it. He shrugs. Whatever we traded for last week. Then he smiles. But it'll wake you without waking the whole ship. It's a good description for pirate tea culture as a whole. It isn't loud. It isn't flashy. But it's everywhere. Warming bellies. Calming nerves. Sealing deals. And back on the ship, as night falls and the crew readies for another journey. The tea chest is inventoried with more care than the weapons locker. Labels are checked. Supplies rationed. Personal stashes counted like coins. You watch as the quartermaster tucks the last brick into a lockbox, clicks it shut, and pats it twice. Better than gold, he mutters. And you believe him, because here, at the edge of the known world, where charts fade into sea monsters and storms, pirates aren't just stealing wealth. They're steeping their legacy. The sails are full again, humming with wind as the ship leaves Madagascar behind, the coast shrinking into a blur of green and memory. You lean on the rail, mug in hand, savoring a final steep of dried mango, cardamom, and strong black leaf. Something the quartermaster called Anchor's Edge. It tastes like goodbye, in the best way. But your mind doesn't rest on the island you've just left. It drifts further, beyond the horizon, beyond history books and powdered wigs and East Indiamen. It drifts to now, because if you close your eyes and listen, really listen, you can almost hear it. The echo of team mugs clinking in rhythm with the tide. A chorus of pirates mumbling over leaf blends and brewing strength instead of drowning in grog. These weren't just moments. They were the seed of a legacy. You start to notice something strange. Familiar, even. It's in the way some sailors still hum sea shanties with a mug in hand. It's in the quiet reverence of your local tea shop. The way the barista measures loose leaf with care like they're setting sails. It's in the phrases strong as black tea, calm as chamomile, steeped in tradition. You begin to see the fingerprints of pirates in all of it. Historians still argue how much of this filtered through time deliberately, or if it simply seeped in unnoticed, like brine through a cracked hull. But one thing's clear. The culture pirates built around tea didn't vanish. It evolved. Take modern merchant sailors. Many still begin their day not with a beer, but a mug of black tea laced with lemon and salt. Not superstition, habit, muscle memory passed from one wave-weary hand to the next. In certain corners of the Caribbean, you'll find tea houses with nautical themes. Names like the Briny Leaf or Bohea and Bootstraps. Some claim pirate ancestry. Others just serve a strong pour with a side of adventure. Either way, the spirit lingers. Quirky fact, a sea shanty collected in Nova Scotia in the late 1800s includes the line, "Boil me water, fire me gun slash, I take my tea for work is done." Scholars scratch their heads. But now, you nod. Even your own daily rituals might echo theirs. That early morning cup before your brain can spell email. The calming chamomile at night when your bones feel too loud. The craving for something hot, something grounding when the storm, literal or otherwise, rises. It's in us. We carry it. Not the cannons. Not the loot. The leaf. You stand on the deck as the crew gathers around a battered kettle. It's the last of the day's ration. A rest blend, someone says, lavender, cinnamon, a touch of dried clove. The galley cook pours it slow, like a ceremony, and no one speaks until every mug is full. A ship once fueled by violence now hums with quiet. You sip, you breathe, you feel the story settle inside you, warm and rooted. And for a moment, everything makes sense. Because when the world rocked beneath their boots, when storms closed in, when bullets flew, when maps ran out and compasses spun, pirates didn't just reach for steel. They reached for tea, not out of weakness, but strength. Not to forget, but to remember who they were. And somehow you do too. And now we ease back. The sail's quiet. The sea hushes to a low, steady breath beneath the ship, like the world itself is exhaling. The crew begins to disappear one by one, hammocks swaying gently as the night takes them. Even the kettle's gone still, just a faint curl of steam rising into the starlight. You find a place at the stern where the moon touches the waves and everything feels far away. Port towns, battles, smuggling routes, the clink of tea mugs in the dark. Let all fade. The air smells faintly of salt and lemon peel. A warm breeze wraps around you like a blanket. The only sound now is the soft creak of wood and the occasional flutter of canvas high above. No footsteps, no shouting, just peace. Let your thoughts drift like a ship untethered. Let them rock gently in the cradle of the sea. Whatever noise you carried into this day, let it stay behind. And if your hands still remember the warmth of that pirate mug, if your chest still feels the strength of that final steep, hold on to it. Let it lull you deeper, like the soft hush of waves on shore. Because the pirates may be gone, but their rituals, their quiet rebellions, their leaf-born clarity, they linger. So let your mind wander across calm waters now. No need to chase sails or storms. Just breathe. Steady, slow, quiet. The tea has done its work, and so have you. Good night, sailor.